Hey guys, it's Stangrel Gaming here, and today we will talk a little bit about WoW Panda Remix, or the Pandaria remix that Blizzard brought out about a week ago. Now, I know it has been a very controversial piece of content where people liked it and disliked it, and I can actually say that today I've actually beaten the content, which to me means that I've maxed out my gear upgrades, I've got all the gems I want, well, technically, and I've beaten all the raids on Heroic and Garrosh on Mythic as well. So I've got all of the achievements, all of the raids done, all of the content done, and I got the best gear that I can possibly get. So I thought, why not make a little video to kind of address how I liked it, what other people thought of it, what I've seen around the forums, and just my general thoughts on it. I liked it. I liked Mr. Pandaria Remix. I think it was quite a lot of fun. There is quite some stuff to do, and everyone can basically do whatever they want in it. Um, Even though a lot of people think they're pigeonholed into farming gear, cosmetics, I think there's actually quite a lot of fun things out of Pandaria that you are able to do if you so desire, basically. Um, I've not done any of the hyper farms myself. I've not participated in any of the content that got rolled back or got fixed, mainly because I didn't really care to stand on an island farming frogs for 10 hours. And I don't really think that was how the content was intended to be enjoyed, so I tried to steer clear of that. So what did I do if I didn't participate in any of that? Well, I mainly did my dailies. So I did my dailies every day. In the beginning, I did world bosses every day when they buffed the world bosses to drop the extra threads. Now I don't do them anymore because threads are not that important and it just takes a bit of time, especially now with a lot more people soloing the bosses, not making groups. You end up just waiting for respawns a lot of the time. So I don't really think they're worth it anymore unless you're really dying to upgrade your cloak. And if I had some more time aside from that, I would jump into some of the raids. Now, usually I would start with the easier raids and then go to the hardest ones. I do believe if you want to farm bronze, you should probably start with Throne of Thunder, Siege of Orgrimmar, and then go to the other ones if you have some more time, just because they are not as lucrative for bronze, just in general. So why did I enjoy Remix? Now, I was very excited for Remix before it came out. And on day one, I had a bunch of friends together. We made a dungeon group and we thought leveling was going to be impossible through questing. So we just kind of decided to all jump into dungeons. And day one dungeons was probably the most fun we could have had. Nobody knew anything about it. We jumped into some normals. Obviously, we didn't have a cloak, so we weren't overpowered at level 10. And I think we did a couple of normal dungeons. Then we jumped into heroic, and heroic was just such a big step up in difficulty. Our tank was almost getting one shot, and we actually really had to play our characters. On top of that, you obviously discover all the tinkers, you could put it in your gear, and it was all new and exciting, and people got tinkers that we didn't know about. People got different tinkers, and you know, like, oh, I'm doing more DPS than you because I've got this awesome tinker, and other people wanting that tinker as well. It was just a really fun experience. I think we dungeon leveled until I think like 35 on the first day or something like that. So and I believe we jumped into the raid as well. So we did Mogushan Vaults on the first day. Obviously, nobody knew about War Cheese, so we actually had to play the bosses a little bit. Although scaling is still a bit off, so the bosses did die really fast. But we did kind of play the encounters a little bit. You got one shot if you messed up some of the mechanics and that kind of stuff. So um, we had a big blast on day one. Then I logged in on day two when everyone was like, well, actually questing's a lot faster. So everybody start spamming questing. You got to max level, and then obviously the scaling thing happened. Now, let's start with putting scaling issue where it is, right? Okay, you get less powerful if you go from 30 to 70 when you compare yourself to normal rates that you have been doing at a lower level. And you get one shot by some of the mechanics, which I fully understand was a bit crappy. However, I think as you just did a couple of normal raids, especially if you did them while leveling, you would get up there in threads, you would get up there in gear. And I think a lot of people, when they started, they were like, I want this cosmetic, I want that cosmetic, I want that cosmetic. And they started just buying cosmetics instead of saving their bronze to upgrade gear. I got to max level, my intent was always to upgrade my gear to max before I started on any cosmetics, so I upgraded my gear, and I never really felt like I was getting one shot by mechanics unfairly. Maybe a couple here and there that got nerfed after the first few days, but I didn't really feel like I was being one shot by mechanics. For me, that was actually quite fun because I actually felt my character getting stronger and stronger in those first couple of days. While I was level 70, I would upgrade my gear, I would do more DPS, I would die less, or I would lose less HP from mechanics. I was also healing back then, so I would heal more, I could keep people alive. That was actually quite fun. Then obviously the cheese era came around with the war cheeses and so on, and I'll be honest, I did participate in war cheese. You would be silly if you didn't. I mean, I came off work, didn't have much time to play. I wanted to do a quick raid. I just joined in Moshan Volt's ward raid and I was done in 10 to 15 minutes. Same for Heart of Fear. You join a ward raid, you're done in 10 to 15 minutes. So if I got off work and I had like half an hour before I had to do some other stuff around the house, for example, I would just nice and quickly log in, do those 2 raids with War Cheese, be done in 30 minutes, and got like quite a substantial amount of bronze. So obviously, I started getting gear. I was doing my dailies. I was doing the world bosses when they introduced the threat change, um, and I was getting up in eye level. So then I started to think, hey, maybe I could solo a normal raid. So I started to try and solo normal Mogushan Volts as I was gaining power. I ended up soloing all of the raids up until Galakraz because Galakraz is unfortunately impossible to solo. I thought maybe there was a mechanic if you were the only person in the raid, they would allow you to solo it, but it is unfortunately impossible to solo, which Blizzard, please fix that. You're saying that everything should be soloable, but then you've got this boss where you do need 2 people to be able to beat him. But on some bosses, you actually have mechanics where you need to, beat a DPS raise or get mind controlled. So those I found really fun because you could do some things with the grounding totem. I'm a shaman, I could do some things with an earth elemental to get some of the debuffs off me. So it was actually quite fun to problem solve some of the bosses and actually learn how to solo it. I also made my own solo character. I just really enjoy these solo type of characters where I made a new character and I'm only doing dungeons and raids and I'm soloing everything and I'm just trying to see how far I can get with just soloing. So I'll actually see if I can address the scaling issue in that because it is getting a bit problematic where I'm at now. I think I'm level 28 and I've been soloing Mogushan Volts, but some of the bosses are quite intense to solo. So I actually need to strategize, use the proper tinkers and so on. And overall, a quite fun experience. But again, something that I've made myself to be fun in this game mode. And I do believe that this is, in essence, how Blizzard intended you to do this content. It's you can get very powerful and one-shot everything but it's all about what you make out of the content. If you want a challenge, you can go into raids under geared and actually have to play the mechanics, not use any of the cheeses, and you can actually have a good time progressing the raids if you wanted to do that with your guild. Obviously, it might not be fun where you have to say to your guild, hey, limit your eye level, guys, we want to try and do that. But the same goes for, let's say, blind raiding and retail. You can blind raid, you just need to find a group of people that want to commit to blind raiding, not looking up strategies. And things like trying to solo raids, making a solo only character, or finding your own ways to enjoy this game mode, I think that's where Blizzard has aimed this content at because it is never ending. It is a bronze grind for a lot of people because people want the rewards. But for me, it's all about the enjoyment. I can't care less about cosmetics, even though I am going to buy the tusks because, well, I can. I've got everything I need to buy the tusks once they fixed the plate only bug. But those are the things I quite enjoyed just making your own kind of content with it. And I think it is really possible. Obviously, there are some things wrong with MoP Remix, right? I think one of the biggest problems, and I've actually discussed this with one of my guildies, is there's just no indication from Blizzard what power level is needed for different types of content. And I think this plays into the entire scaling thing. I feel like people think they reach max level and they can immediately go into a heroic raid. They get one shot and be like, oh, Blizzard scaling's off the charts. Normals, leveling raids, I get max level. I want to jump into heroic raid and I just get one shot. Which I don't really believe was their intention. I think their intention was you might walk into a heroic, you might get one shot, and then you realize you need to go grind your gear, which obviously gets a bit problematic because people want to spend their bronze on their cosmetics. Should they have 2 currencies? Maybe. I think the problem with 2 currencies is that people would be done with the content way too fast. I've not been playing too much of Pandaland. As I said, if I had in weekends, I would try to do all the raids, but I never always did all of them. And I'm done with gearing my character, so now I can start on cosmetics. And we're only, what is it, about 10 days in? So I do think we've still got plenty of time to do it. Should they increase bronze gains? Maybe. Maybe a little bit. I think it's a bit too slow, and I think too much of the bronze gain is actually just focused in raids. If you don't have time for raids, you can't get that bronze. So I would love to see some other content giving a bit more bronze and not just the dailies. Maybe the daily quests reward instead of just the cash with like the 40 gold. They just every daily quest you do gives 250 bronze, for example. Just so people who want to do some outdoor content, they could just do a couple of dailies, get 250 bronze, still get like decent bronze out of that rather than just the small caches you get. I think a big problem is the variety of player power. It's just crazy. And if you want to do a balanced trade where you have a bit of a difficulty, you don't use cheeses, you don't know who to invite. you could say 400 eye level everyone for Throne of Thunder Heroic, and someone could have a massive cloak because they stopped upgrading their gear, right? So it's very difficult to nail down exactly where Blizzard would like you to be to have a difficult time and a bit of a challenging time with the content, which I find a little bit frustrating because obviously, if you want to go fast, you're there for the bronze. Go join a group with high eye level, get boosted by 476, whatever you want to do, right? But I feel like I don't have an option to make the content hard because I don't know who I should invite to my group unless I really organize 9 of my friends to do it. So I think that's one thing. Another thing to do, Blizzard, please, is boost alts, cloaks, and reduce their bronze needed to upgrade their gear. I would love to play an alt. I have so many cool ideas. Unholy Dead Knight, max level with a maxed cloak and gear seems so much fun, but it's just not viable for me to do another character to max gear if it costs 500,000 bronze. I feel just make it like retail. If your main's done it, give your alts a reduced bronze cost for upgrading their gear. They don't need the full maxed cloak because that would make any content between level 1 and 70 absolutely redundant. My alt would get 7,000 main stat at level 1 or at level 10, which is just absolutely ridiculous. That would break the game a bit too much. But in essence, just let people have fun and let people want to play alts at max level. Because if I would make an alt now, and I'm going to make a lot of alts, I just started playing on a new server. I want a bunch of alts going into war within on that server just for my guild. I'm just going to cap them, use the bronze on cosmetics, and not do anything else with them, even if they're really fun to play, because I don't want to invest bronze into my gear, or not as much as I did on my main. And therefore, I'm just going to hope that I'm going to get boosted through my dailies. I'm absolutely going to hate it because my shaman does daily heroics in 2 minutes, right? In 3 minutes, it just one shots everything he comes across. If I would go on my alt, it wouldn't be that fast. I would want to upgrade my gear to make it more fun to do the dailies, but it's just not viable for the price it is. So maybe Blizzard reduce the cost on alts so people can actually have some max level fun on alts. And that might actually allow them to, if they have a day where they have much time, just farm a couple of raids, get more bronze on all of his characters rather than now, having to make that very hard decision. I'm fine with it on a main, just get rid of it on alts. So that's kind of what I think. So in general, I think I really enjoyed MoP remakes, although you have to make kind of the content enjoyable for yourself. Try do some solo bosses and some raids, even if you're a bit lower eye level. Just try it if you have some time and if you enjoy that kind of stuff. It is actually fun to problem solve some of the bosses, and you'll actually see that every time you upgrade your gear, you get exponentially stronger, so it will become a lot easier to then solo those bosses. So you might not be able to solo an entire raid this week, but then, tomorrow you do a full clear, you do some dailies, you upgrade your gear, and you might actually be able to do it. And I hope that the community and Blizzard will kind of work together to make some indications of how content should be and how you can enjoy the content if you want it to be hard, what you want to limit yourself at, what eye level would be expected to make that content fun. And I think lastly, if you could Blizzard, probably not going to do it, but just have a queuing system for normal heroic. Just make it like LFR. There's no need. Make wings just with the normal and the heroic difficulty. Maybe not for mythic. Just make wings of LFR. People who have less time, they can just jump into a normal wing, heroic wing. They could do 3 bosses and just be done with it, rather than to have to do the full raid. And then once they are online later, they could just jump in and do the bosses. So I don't think there's any reason to keep normal and heroic not queuable like the wing system on LFR, but just give them the normal and the heroic difficulty, and maybe give them a minimum eye level just to make sure that people who join in don't get stuck in a group that just gets one shot by the first mechanic the boss does. But aside from that, I've enjoyed it. I'm going to keep playing it. I'm going to try and do some content on it. I'm going to try and do a series on my solo alts that I'm trying out. And with that, I think I've said enough, and I will leave you guys to it. So have a very nice rest of your day all, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.